What players must be wired like to survive under Mike McDaniel? To function, grow, and ultimately thrive under Mike McDaniel, a player must possess a strong internal urgency that does not rely on external pressure. McDaniel does not use yelling, fear, or public embarrassment to motivate. Players must be able to self-generate seriousness, focus, and competitiveness without needing emotional escalation from the coaching staff. Those who wait for tone shifts or motivational theatrics to tell them a day or game is important will struggle. Players must also have low ego needs paired with high pride in craft. McDaniel's system routinely asks players to do unglamorous work, blocking without credit, acting as a decoy, or serving as structural leverage so someone else can succeed. Players who measure their value by touches, targets, or snap counts often feel marginalized. Players who measure themselves by execution quality and contribution to the whole system feel empowered. Emotional regulation is critical. McDaniel expects players to treat wins, losses, and individual mistakes as information, not emotional events. Body language, frustration, or visible self-punishment after errors are red flags in his environment. The ability to play the next snap with the same discipline and intent, regardless of outcome on the previous play, is a foundational requirement. Another essential trait is tolerance for ambiguity. Roles in McDaniel's system are fluid, game plans change weekly, and clarity is sometimes intentionally delayed for competitive reasons. Players who need rigid certainty to feel secure or who struggle with role variability often experience anxiety or disengagement. McDaniel rewards adaptability, not entitlement. Cognitively, players must be pattern learners rather than strict rule followers. McDaniel teaches principles, timing, and relationships between parts of the system rather than rigid instructions for every possible situation. Players who understand why something works and can transfer that understanding across different looks excel. Players who need exact instructions every time tend to slow down or hesitate. Effort is not merely a preference in McDaniel's system, it is a moral standard. Pre-snap penalties, loafing, or mental lapses before the play begins are viewed as giving the opponent free advantage and are fundamentally unacceptable. Players are allowed to fail while trying, but they are not allowed to fail by neglecting preparation or discipline. Finally, players must be long-horizon thinkers. McDaniel's approach emphasizes development arcs, cumulative learning, and late-season growth. Players who demand immediate gratification or interpret weekly fluctuations in usage as personal demotion often press and deteriorate. Players who trust the process and stay ready tend to be rewarded over time. Exact playoff failure points in Mike McDaniel's style. In playoff environments, Mike McDaniel's greatest strength, calm, process-driven leadership, can become a vulnerability if not properly supported. One primary failure point is undersignaling urgency. His composed demeanor and analytical language can sometimes fail to ignite the emotional edge required in single-elimination games. This can manifest as flat starts, conservative early play calling, or missed opportunities before the team fully engages. Another risk is overprotecting identity. McDaniel holds firm standards about players not returning unless they can perform at their full personal level. In playoff contexts, this can mean leaving situationally useful but compromised players unused, even when a narrowly defined role could still provide value. Decision latency under chaos is a third vulnerability. McDaniel prefers decisions based on evidence rather than instinct. In playoff moments where time, crowd noise, momentum, and pressure compress decision windows, this preference can slow commitment unless guardrails are already in place. There is also the risk of reflective carryover after losses. McDaniel emphasizes learning and meaning-making after failure, which is valuable over a season. In the postseason, however, teams sometimes need immediate assertiveness rather than extended reflection. Without balance, introspection can briefly crowd out aggression. Finally, opponents may attempt to manufacture chaos through tempo swings, crowd manipulation, officiating pressure, or emotional provocation. Because McDaniel's system depends on synchronization and calm execution, sudden disorder can momentarily disrupt rhythm if no one actively enforces tempo and focus on the field. How assistant coaches can cover these playoff risks. To address urgency under-signaling, the coaching staff must include a designated emotional ignition coach. This assistant is not responsible for strategy or scheme, but for injecting edge, stakes, and intensity into the environment. This role is best filled by a coach with strong emotional authority, often a former player, who communicates in simple, visceral language. Mike McDaniel sets the plan. This assistant lights the fuse. To prevent overprotection of identity from limiting options, the staff should develop predefined January role packages. These packages assign narrow, high-leverage responsibilities to players who may not be fully healthy, but can still contribute in specific situations. This allows the team to access value without violating McDaniel's standards or risking player well-being. To eliminate decision latency under chaos, the staff must pre-authorize critical decisions. Fourth down choices, red zone calls, 2-minute offense plans, and late-game clock management should be finalized before kickoff. When these decisions are pre-agreed upon, McDaniel can maintain his calm without slowing execution in high-pressure moments. To counter reflective drag after losses, assistant coaches should facilitate short-cycle accountability meetings led by players. These meetings focus on one correction, one demand, and one behavioral expectation. They avoid philosophy and concentrate on immediate execution. Finally, chaos control must be enforced on the field by veteran leaders, particularly at quarterback, offensive line, linebacker, and safety. These players act as tempo regulators, ensuring alignment, communication, and focus regardless of external noise. Final synthesis. Players who succeed under Mike McDaniel are internally driven, detail-oriented craftsmen with low ego needs, high emotional regulation, and patience for long-term development. His playoff risks do not stem from softness or indecision, but from calm being mistaken for flatness and standards being mistaken for rigidity. The solution is not to change Mike McDaniel, but to surround him with assistants and veteran leaders who supply emotional ignition, decisiveness under chaos, and situational pragmatism while preserving the integrity of his system. If you want, I can now adapt this directly to specific Chargers players, turn it into a draft and free agent evaluation filter, or simulate how this profile performs in a wild card or divisional round playoff scenario.